Hey guys, so I hope you have been enjoying watching some of my videos recently. I am going to be starting a new series of videos on my channel. It's going to be the budgeting series. And to start it all off, I'm going to be doing a budgeting draw my life. I got this idea from Heaven Plans, I believe is her name on YouTube. So to start off, I am going to be talking about the first job that I had. I worked at Burger King as a team member. And I mostly worked in the kitchen. I didn't really do drive-through, but here I was making around $8.10 an hour. I did really love working here. When I first started, I guess, because it was my first job, so my first bigger job. I did have a job prior to this, but it was kind of on an as needed basis. So I didn't work there consistently, but Burger King was the first job where they would schedule me and I had to go in at certain times. So during my career at Burger King, I was saving up for a car because I had turned 16 at that point, and I didn't have the luxury of being offered a car or anything, so I had to purchase it myself. And I didn't know anything about loans then or debt or anything like that, so I was just assuming I have to save up for it with my own money to be able to purchase it, or else I'm not going to be able to drive anywhere, I'm not going to be able to do any extracurriculars in school, and I'm not going to be able to get any other jobs other than the one that I can walk to. So I saved up all of my money for the first couple of jobs that I had. I wasn't spending any money. It was really nice to be getting bigger paychecks. Well, than I was used to. I was used to getting $0. So to be getting $200+ each paycheck was insane to me. And so I eventually ended up leaving Burger King, of course, because working at fast food isn't the easiest job to have. And then I went to work at JBPlanning, which, if you don't know, that's just a, what is it called? The stores in the mall, like Sears, JCPenney, Macy's, department stores. I worked at a department store just as a sales associate, and I was actually hired on seasonally, but they ended up keeping me on into May, I believe, or March. And so at this point, I am still in high school, and I'm still saving up for a car. JCPenney was about 10 miles away from where I live, so I did have to take a car, but I was fortunate enough to be able to borrow my mom's boyfriend's car. It was technically my mom's car, but he drove it, but he worked third shift, so I was able to use that. And then eventually I ended up saving $3,000 to be able to purchase my first car in cash. And I believe the car only had 40,000 miles on it, and it is an '02 Toyota Corolla, so it had, Corollas are known for not rusting, being really good, reliable cars, so. And then I spent every penny I earned on clothes after I purchased my first car and food. I believe that is okay for everyone to do if they're very strict with their money and they're able to save a lot, especially when you're young. If you're saving every single penny and it's your first job, you need a period of time where you just spend that money that you've earned. And so since I was working at JCPenney, we were getting a lot of deals, 50% off or so. So I was able to get a lot of clothes for that, which is also good. I was still very frugal in the sense that I would spend $5 on a t-shirt, and I would pretty much exclusively shop at JCPenney. And then I'm going to fast forward into my college years. When I was in college, for a short time, I did go back to Burger King and I worked as an assistant manager. But when I was heading off to college, I didn't know where the money was going to come from for college. I didn't even know that you needed to get public loans, I believe is what they're called, or private loans, something like that, outside of the federal government. I didn't know that there was a cap to how much the federal government would offer you in student loans. And I didn't know that there was anything like Sallie Mae or Discover or any other type of loans. And I didn't think about the fact that I need to have a credit score. So I did end up having my grandparents co-sign a $5,000 well, it's almost $6,000 student loan for me so that I was able to go to college. So I went to Baldwin-Wallace for my first year of college, and there I wanted to study to become a doctor. I was double majoring in neuroscience and biology, and I ended up taking out $10,000 in student loans for that school program. They did offer me the highest amount of scholarship packages, so when I went into my second year, I didn't think that it was worth it to graduate with $40,000 in student loan debt. So I decided to transfer schools because I no longer wanted to become a doctor. I did not want to graduate college with, $100,000 to $200,000 in debt. Still have to go to medical school and be a resident and not really be able to start my life at all. So I transferred from Baldwin-Wallace to the University of Akron my second year of college, my sophomore year. And at Baldwin-Wallace, I did live in the dorms, and it was a private school. Well, at the University of Akron, I live at home, so I don't have that added dorm cost, and it is a state school. So that's how it's able to be so much cheaper. I believe it's about $10,000 a year, only $5,000 a semester, whereas BW is $40,000 a year. So next I'm just going to be breaking down the different years. Here I'm just writing that I went from wanting to be a doctor or physician's assistant to business, and now I am majoring in human resource management. So my first year at Baldwin-Wallace, I ended up taking out $10,000 in student loan debt. My second year, I ended up taking out no money. I paid for it in full in cash. My third year, I ended up taking out a $1,000 federal subsidized loan. And my fourth year, I ended up taking out $5,500 in a federal subsidized loan. And to break it down a little bit further, at Baldwin-Wallace, my first year, I took out around $5,000 in federal loans, and then I took out an extra $6,000 in private loans, roughly. So it's more like $11,000, but I round down just while I'm in school. And so at the end of all of this, after I graduate, and I wanted to talk about how my fourth year, the reason why it went up so high and I had to take out so many more loans to go to Akron was because my mother got married, and so she was no longer considered a single mother, and 2 incomes were being added into my FAFSA, so I lost a lot of money from that. So that's one thing you need to take into account. If your parents don't assist you with college, then you need to realize that FAFSA is going to give you less money if your parents make a good amount of money. So here I'm just talking about writing about how FAFSA, took away all my money from me. And so I was pretty stressed out this last summer. I also have a really bad school schedule, so I'm not able to work a whole lot, but I'm going to school 5 days out of the week, which I've never done before. It's usually only 2 or 3. So that sucks, but gotta do what you gotta do. So now I am around $20,000 in debt. So that's really not too bad for a college graduate. Most college graduates leave school with $40,000 of debt. That's the average. So I'm half of the average amount, which is pretty good. And so now where I'm at on my financial journey is I started Dave Ramsey's Baby Steps recently. And so I bought the book Total Money Makeover, and I am currently working on baby step number 2. I'm not really able to accomplish much with that while in college because I make such a little amount of money. But I am planning on moving out soon and saving up a lot of my money for that expense. And so just at the end clip here, I just have a couple tips for you guys. I wrote down to choose a cheap school and save up in high school. Don't waste money on the dorms. Practice good money habits from a young age, and don't beat yourself up for having to take out student loans. I know that Dave Ramsey, for some reason, he talks a lot about like living in the dorms and such, but you don't want to do that. If your parents are going to be paying for you to paying for your living, essentially, you want to try and convince them to get you an apartment, even a single apartment where they're paying for you and just you. Or if you want to lessen that financial burden on your parents, then you could get yourself a roommate so that you both have shared living expenses. But if your parents are going to pay for that for you, or even if you're planning on like, don't take out loans for the dorms is another tip that I have. Like, stay at home and just choose a school that's close to home. But the dorms are so terrible. They're like $900 a month if you calculate the monthly expense. You don't have a kitchen for yourself. You don't have your own bathroom. Sometimes the bathrooms aren't even in the rooms. You have to share with one person. You don't have your own living space. It's a terrible experience, in my opinion, and definitely not worth the money whatsoever. So I know Dave Ramsey talks a lot about the dorms, but I don't get that idea, because if your parents are paying for it for you, don't do the dorms. Convince them, show them how crappy of a financial situation the dorms are and how it's not worth their money. But that's just a little rant that I had. And just for some closing remarks, if you have any questions about my financial journey, or if you need some like financial tips, if you're in high school or in college and you have any questions that you want to ask me, leave them down below in the comments. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video.